So now that I have trained my model, the last thing I want to do is create a new script to actually take that model and apply it back to our data set. Okay, in this case there's two ways I can apply this. The first thing I'm going to do, just as a very simple example, is I'm going to apply that learning model back to my OCT data points and see how accurate this is, right? Because ideally what we would do is find some pattern that applies to all the OCT data points and very accurately be able to tell which points are in OCT and which ones are not. So ideally all of these would be predicted as inside OCT, right? We know it's not perfect, right? Because based on our plot, there's a lot of data points or comments within OCT that actually don't have those OCT words in them. They will be classified as outside OCT. But this is a very interesting application already because it'll tell us in a way which of the locations in OCT are really kind of specifically about OCT, right? So some of the main kind of galleries might talk a lot about all the words that we found, and some of them, like the coffee shops, might be talking about very general things. Okay, and then a further application that you might want to consider on your own is, could we take the entire data set of all of Shenzhen and apply that model to all of these places and actually generate a bigger set of places that are like or unlike OCT. Okay, so but in this example I'm just gonna reapply that model just to these points. The first thing I want to do is specify my directories, and in this case, because I'm going to be looking at all of the data again, right, to see all the comments, I need to import both my zip file and a working directory. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste that from my first script here. Now I need to specify my prediction file. The prediction file will contain a list of all the place IDs that I want to predict with. Okay, and in my case I'm just going to use this OCT data again. So if you remember, OCT data just contains all the place IDs of OCT. Okay, if you want to do another application and say look at all the check-ins of all Shenzhen, you need a different set of data, something like Shenzhen data, which contains all the place IDs from all of Shenzhen. It works basically the same way, it's just that this process will take a lot longer to compute. Alright, so for my predict file, I'm going to point to my OCT data file. And finally, I want to specify a file name where I'm going to write the results of my predictions. Okay, so this will be my kind of final output data. I'll put that in the same folder and just call it predicted POID. Now I want to import some libraries, so my zip file library will let me read through that zip file again and get all the comments. My random library, my pickle library, I want to import the two scikit-learn libraries that I use here. Finally, the NumPy library. And as before, I want to start with specifying the random seed. Now I want to read all of my OCT data. This is the POIDs I'm going to predict on. I'm going to run through them and import them into an array. I'm just going to copy and paste the same code I have here. Right? So this code in our first script was running through this whole data set of OCT POIDs and storing it in a target list. I'm going to copy and paste this down here. Instead of target list, I'm just going to call this predict list. Okay? So just to make sure this isn't confusing, in this case, our training set is the same as our what we want to predict. Okay, this is a kind of validation. We're applying our same model to the same data we're predicted on. That's one kind of application. We could always replace this with a whole new set of POIDs. Say you want to look at a different neighborhood or all of Shenzhen. It's just in this particular case, we want to look at the same exact data. Okay, so here's predict list. I'm going to change this to match the name of my file coming in, splitting lines. I'm going to do the same exact process. This is going to be my predict list. I'm gonna print the length of that list just to make sure everything's being imported correctly.